temperature. Hello, it is 5 a.m. in Des Moines, Iowa. It's 8 p.m. in Tokyo. I'm Monita, Rajpal. This is World One, live from London. But first, Republicans in the state of Iowa kicked off the U.S. presidential election season with a long day of caucuses and an even longer night of counting up. In the end, it was the closest result in Iowa caucus history. The winner, by just 8 votes, is former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. He's been the frontrunner for months. Rick Santorum was virtually unknown to most U.S. voters until just a few weeks ago. Now he's essentially tied with Romney. They each got just under 25% of the vote. Ron Paul came third with 21%. Newt Gingrich was next with 13%. So no clear leader at this stage, and months to go before we know the Republicans' presidential candidate. But after the Iowa results, both Romney and Santorum talked like they had the nomination and were ready for a go against Barack Obama.
You are working and I am working and we're all working together because of our passion for this country and our concern that it's being led by a president who may be a nice guy but just is over his head.
So a good night for Rick Santorum, tough night for Michelle Buckman and Rick Perry, and a long night for political reporter Shannon Travis. He joins us now live from Iowa's state capital, Des Moines. Shannon, thanks for being with us. So 8 votes just separating Santorum and Mitt Romney. Not necessarily a win to be proud of, but a win nonetheless.
You're absolutely right about that, Monita. It is a win nonetheless for the former Massachusetts governor.
Reporting there. Now, we know that domestic issues such as the economy and immigration play big on the campaign trail, but we also want to take a closer look at where the Republican frontrunners stand on some of the big foreign policy issues, some of which Tim Lister had touched upon there. Now, Mitt Romney, the winner in Iowa, says he would favor a show of force against Iran by deploying aircraft carrier strike groups to the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf. He supports increasing aid to Israel and has threatened to block U.S. aid and UN funding to the Palestinians in response to their push for statehood. Now, Ron Paul, his foreign policy views have been described as libertarian. He proposes ending all foreign aid. The congressman says the U.S. has no authority to get involved in Arab Spring uprisings in the Middle East and should be neutral in the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. And then we've got Rick Santorum here. Now, he says he would work with Israel to eliminate the Iranian nuclear threat immediately. He has criticized President Obama for pulling U.S. troops out of Iraq, and he opposes the president's timeline for withdrawal from Afghanistan. Santorum also says the U.S. should issue an ultimatum to Pakistan and to side with the U.S. or lose American aid. You are watching World One live from London. Of course, we'll have more from Iowa, including what lies ahead. 2 men convicted of the racist killing of a black teenager in London in 1993 are due to be sentenced today. A jury found Gary Dobson and David Norris guilty after new forensic evidence was recovered from their homes. John Clements looks at the impact the case had on race relations, policing, and the law in the UK.
It's been 18 years in the making and was highly emotional. Thanks for the jury, relief at the verdict.
John Clements there reporting, and the sentencing is due to be handed down within the hour and will be live outside the High Court for the latest details on the sentencing in the next hour. We want to see what newspapers here in the UK are saying about this. The Guardian has this headline: a momentous campaign and a verdict to give society hope. It's an opinion piece from Lord Oldley, who says the news that justice for Stephen Lawrence has been achieved sends out shockwaves. It inspires all who had given up hope. Progress beyond that depends on how we create a morality in society where we preach the virtues of respect and dignity. A comment piece in the Herald has the headline, "Some but not full justice for the Lawrence family." It goes on to say racism has not disappeared. It is simply less overt. Stephen Lawrence was murdered by 5 or 6 racist youths. Not 2. The fight must go on to put the others behind bars too. This is not the end of this case any more than it is the end of racism. A headline of the Independent newspaper reads, "The killing that ended Britain's denial about racism." The comment piece goes on to say it exposed reflexes of denial and defensiveness in our society that most white people didn't even know we had. It shifted the whole argument into new and healthier territory. It made a lasting difference. One issue, many views, and you can read all those articles in full at facebook.com/W1CNN. At least 2 people died as hurricane-force winds and rain lashed the UK on Tuesday. Powerful gusts overturned trucks and storm-tossed waves made for hazardous conditions at sea. One man was crushed to death after a tree fell onto his van in high winds. And a seaman died when a wave smashed into his ship off the southwest coast. The winds also brought down power lines, leaving thousands of homes in the dark. So let's get a check now on the weather conditions here and elsewhere. Let's go to meteorologist Jennifer Delgado at the World Weather Center. Jen.
Hi, Monita. You're right. It was a wild day yesterday, and we're looking at another day because they're going to deal with another day of cold temperatures. So it is going to be a tricky one out there.
Yeah, not much fun for Orange. I know.
I don't like the cold.
It's, you know what's, it's kind of nice to bundle up and feel cozy at times, but I
stay in the house.
At least it's not snowing. It's not snowing.
It just gives me an extra excuse to eat. Stay warm.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. Thanks a lot for that, Jen. We'll check in with you later. Okay. You're watching World One live from London. Praying for prosperity. Many people living in Japan have been visiting shrines as the new year gets underway, appealing for a break from misfortune and disaster in 2012. Well, on Wednesday, one small sign of re-emerging confidence, Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index started the year with a gain of more than 1%. Last year, the index lost more than 17%, battered by Japan's triple tragedy in March, the earthquake, the tsunami, and then nuclear disaster. Well, many people in Japan are keeping faith. We want to take you live now to Kyung La at CNN Tokyo with more on that. Kyung, Happy New Year to you.
A Happy New Year to you. And they're celebrating here in Japan by visiting those shrines. You saw that picture just a short time ago. And it's a sense of, when we talk about the global economy, it's this feeling of helplessness. What can you do? Well, some of the faithful here are getting some religion. Remember how tough that time was, Monita?
All right. Well, we wish them and everyone all the best there in Japan. All right, Kyung La, thank you so much for that at CNN Tokyo. Now, the same religion, different interpretations. This disparity is at the heart of an escalating struggle between ultra-Orthodox Jews and mainstream society in Israel. As Kevin Flower reports, the tensions took a startling turn at the weekend, with protesters from both sides provoking outrage.
For Israelis, it was a shocking and repulsive image. To keep it unified. Kevin Flower, CNN, Jerusalem.
You're watching World One live from London. Rick Perry told his supporters he would consider whether to stay in the race. He finished 5th in Iowa behind Newt Gingrich. For more on a dramatic night, here's CNN's political editor, Paul Steinhauser.
Thank you so much, Iowa.
For former Senator Rick Santorum, a momentous night.
Well, as we know, running a campaign isn't cheap, so how much does it cost to run for president? Take a look at some of the past elections. In 1996, the candidates spent $477 million. That's the primaries, the conventions, and the general election combined. Now, compare that to 2000, and according to Federal Election Commission, the total was almost $650 million. Now, in 2004, candidates spent more than $1 billion combined, and then total spending in 2008 was almost $2 billion at $1.83 billion. The Obama campaign raised and spent more than $745 million by itself. Well, for more on the Republican presidential candidates and what happens next in the race for the party's nomination, go to CNN.com/election. It's got answers to a host of other questions, such as why is the vote always on Tuesdays? How many Americans are already bored with the campaign? And what does Iowa tell us about the race to come? That's all at CNN.com/election. The head of the Arab League is due to hold talks with the Arab Human Rights Council today to discuss the violence that's believed to have killed thousands of people in Syria. The Arab League has had a fact-finding team in Syria to check if the government is keeping its promise to pull military forces out of residential areas. But there in Beirut. Egypt's former president Hosni Mubarak is due back in court today to hear the prosecutor's latest evidence against him. Here he is arriving at his trial in Cairo. That was on Tuesday. The former leader is reportedly suffering from poor health. It's been an historic day in cricket with some of the world's top batsmen taking the honors. Australians Michael Clarke and Ricky Ponting and South Africa's Jacques Kallis have all terrorized the opposition. Alex Thompson's here to bring us the details.
Maybe a little dramatic.
A little bit.
You'll understand why. Let's start with the man who wasn't the fans' choice when he became Australia's cricket captain. Upset.
A little emotional.
Yeah.
It's okay
I can
to
understand.
be emotional.
I think I might just go off now. More sport in an hour's time.
Just hold it together.
Okay, sure.
For a while. You're watching World One live from London. Still to come, loved and hated in equal measure. Now the life of Britain's controversial. Live from London, we are approaching almost 7 a.m., give it about 10 minutes, and it's all in New York, that is, and it's almost midday here in London. Being President of the United States is a pretty big responsibility, to say the least, and those who've held the office generally dress for the job, but running for president, that's something different. The grueling schedule can take a toll on a candidate and his or her wardrobe. Jeannie Mose has been looking into the candidate's couture, and she doesn't like what she sees.
Applause here for
For more than a decade, from the 1970s to the 1990s, Margaret Thatcher dominated British politics, leaving a country divided over her legacy. Now, she could divide a generation of movie critics. It is the European premiere of The Iron Lady in London later this Wednesday. The film chronicles the career of Britain's most famous female politician, played by Oscar-winning actress Meryl Streep. We want to get thoughts now of someone who's seen it all from the House of Commons and, of course, from the movie theaters as well. Film critic Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, thank you very much for being with us. What did you think?
I thought it was an absolutely remarkable film, dominated by Meryl Streep, who gives a performance which...
This is the thing I'm wondering. Do you think they should have done a film that was more about... I guess the life of Margaret Thatcher, not necessarily from an emotional perspective, such as where she suffers from dementia, but perhaps from the achievements from her politically, and that would have been more of a portrayal of this iconic figure rather than a frail figure.
Undoubtedly, that would have been, I think, a film most people would be able to follow more.
Yeah. But the fact that she was an Iron Lady, she's also human.
And also Meryl Streep's third Oscar, I predict.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? Coming up soon. All right. Thank you very much for that, Richard. An Olympic swordsman who donned Darth Vader's mask and became a mentor to film stars. Well, he has died at the age of 89. Bob Anderson carved a career in sword fighting choreography that spanned more than half a century. Richard Allen Green looks back at his life. And I'm Monita. Rajpal. Stay with us. The news continues at the top of the hour.